It's you!
Only that's the little girl.
You want some, big guy? Get out of here, freak!
Hey guys, what is up? Nihat here with Film and Comics Explained, and today we'll be taking a look at the Big Daddies featured in the awesome BioShock series developed by 2K Games. The Big Daddies were essentially human beings that had been heavily spliced with Adam, a substance harvested from a type of sea slug that once bonded with human DNA would begin to cause major adaptive mutations in its hosts. They were then grafted directly into heavily reinforced steampunk-inspired atmospheric diving suits, before being armed typically with a rivet gun and a heavy drill, though revisions were made in later models granting them rocket launchers, mini turrets and lasers. Their primary purpose was to protect the Little Sisters, which were young girls that had also been genetically modified and conditioned to reclaim Adam from corpses around Rapture. If all of the Little Sisters on a particular level ended up being harvested or saved, the massive daddies could be seen aimlessly wandering the station looking for them, constantly banging on vents before groaning in frustration and walking away hoping to find another. Aside from the Alpha series, the Big Daddies would communicate by uttering haunting sounds similar to that of whales. They also had a unique bioluminescent chemical substance which filled the helmet, displaying their state of mind with three colors: red, green, and yellow. Green indicated that the Big Daddy was hypnotized and friendly. Yellow meant that the Big Daddy was aware but indifferent to his environment, though it should be noted that in this state, they would still instinctively react to people nearby. And if they stood in between them and their Little Sisters, the Big Daddies would begin to rage, turning red and ruthlessly attacking the assailants. From the time of its founding, the maintenance of Rapture required trained divers in reinforced suits to walk outside along the sea floor and repair leaks. By the time of the Protector Program tests, many citizens of Rapture had been genetically altered with Adam and permanently sealed inside special diving suits to become what they were eventually called, Big Daddies. As the demand for Adam increased, their creator, Dr. Yi Shishong, proposed the idea of recycling the raw genetic material directly from the corpses of dead splicers, instead of exclusively producing it with the Little Sisters in their laboratories. With the genetically modified girls now being placed at great risk when out on the streets gathering Adam on their own, the Protector Program was initiated to bond them to the hulking Big Daddies, turning the latter into guardians who would respond aggressively to any threat encountered by the gatherers. This program was suggested to Andrew Ryan, the founder of Rapture, by Sushong, who noted that becoming a Big Daddy would be a one-way street, and that they were going to be having a hard time finding new volunteers. Ryan then gave assurances that it would not be a problem, and immediately began finding suitable candidates, many of which were exiled criminals, political dissidents who opposed Ryan, and even a handful that were legally insane. Candidates for the program were then hand-selected by Dr. Sophia Lamb, a psychiatrist who herself had been imprisoned in Rapture by Ryan for spreading altruistic ideals among the people that challenged his vision. These candidates first went through a voice box modification and pheromone applications, before their skin and organs were grafted and integrated into their suits. The subjects were then placed in large vats of an unknown substance that made them more subservient over time. Through genetic splicing, the humans inside the heavy suits were given enhanced strength and agility. Their endoskeleton also contained the life support machinery needed to keep them alive during their duties, allowing them to lift ridiculously heavy objects, as well as survive in extreme weather environments. Experiments were then conducted on those that were chosen by Dr. Gilbert Alexander, who was a genetic biologist working within Rapture. Alex took inspiration from the common nickname for the Protector Program and engineered a conditioned bond between the Protectors and their charges, which through the use of mental and physical restraints enabled them to mimic the emotional bond between father and child. After many failed attempts, the first candidate from the Protector Program to be successfully pair-bonded was Subject Delta, a deep-sea diver formerly known as Johnny Topside, who was unfortunate enough to discover the city by accident. Though the Alpha series was initially hailed as a success, there was one major flaw in their conditioning that led to their deactivation, which was that they only protected a single Little Sister. They were also susceptible to being attacked by splicers and rescued by Bridget Tenenbaum, who was the geneticist who discovered Adam and the person who created the Little Sisters.
Stay away from her or it is you who will be shot next.
Easy now, Doctor. He's just looking for a wee bit of Adam. Just enough to get by.
I'll not have him hurt my little ones. Here, there is another way. Use this. Free them from their torment. I will make it to be worth your while.
At the same time this was happening, Dr. Shusong was also working on a bond of his own to no avail, and kept finding that his version of the Big Daddies kept ignoring the girls they were supposed to protect. A solution soon became evident when the hulking creatures began to care for the girls after they'd provided them with Adam to survive, and with the help of Elizabeth, he was able to perfect this bond between a protector and two little sisters within his laboratory. Unfortunately for Shusong, he failed to notice a change of behavior in the protector and carelessly slapped one of the little sisters out of frustration during a recording, which triggered the aggressive response from the protector, who then impaled Shusong with his drill.
Look, Mr. Bubbles, it's an angel. Wait a minute, he's still breathing. It's alright. I know he'll be an angel soon.
With the bonding system now working, two new types of Big Daddies were introduced, called the Bouncers and the Rosies. The pairs of Big Daddies and Little Sisters were then deployed into the public spaces of Rapture, much to the shock and anger of residents who were afraid of the Giants. This inevitably led Andrew Ryan to make several public service announcements warning people against approaching the Big Daddies, who he had described as knights in shining armor, created to protect the citizens of Rapture against parasites. As the violence on the streets became more extreme, elite versions of the Bouncer and Rosie were then created to help defend Little Sisters that were in more dangerous parts of the city. Ryan even commissioned a third model of Protector to be created by the Rapture Central Computing, using the help of the Thinker, and thus the Lancer was born, which was considered to be the most advanced Big Daddy up until that stage. Despite the new Protector being finished, it never actually left its den, as Reed Wall, who was an engineer corrupted by Adam, sealed off the entire facility that housed them from the rest of Rapture. By the end of the Civil War, and years after the death of Andrew Ryan, the gathering of Adam continued until the remaining Little Sisters in Rapture were too old to process the raw genetic material. The remaining Big Daddies continued doing maintenance to the city, while the Little Sisters were converted into Big Sisters by Dr. Alexander, who was one of the few remaining scientists left in Rapture. These behemoths were conditioned to serve as enforcers, and also had a diving suit grafted onto them, much like the Big Daddies, giving the remaining splicers a new enemy to deal with. The terrifying units were also used in reconnaissance missions, and were even sent to the surface by Lamb to kidnap girls from the surface to become new Little Sisters. The evolution of the splicers over the years made them particularly effective at fighting the already existing Big Daddies, which forced Alexander to create a new model of Protector called the Rumbler that was specifically designed to effectively dispatch larger groups of enemies. Bouncers. The Bouncers were one of the 5 subtypes of Big Daddies seen throughout the series that were clad in a distinctive heavy diving suit, the entire torso of which was covered by a thick metal carapace. Their heads protruded directly from their upper chest and was encased in a hemispherical helmet studded with 8 lit portholes, while a large, fully functional conical drill was attached to their right arm. This drill served as their main weapon, and they would generally attack using powerful blows at close range, though the elite versions of the Bouncers were known to instead carry a spinning harpoon that could be used as a ranged weapon. Rosies. The Rosies were the second type of Big Daddies featured in the first game that were also clad in a similar heavy diving suit, while their torso was covered by a high-gauge metal carapace. Their heads were guarded by a thick metal diving helmet that was welded to the Rose carapace. Unlike the Bouncers, these daddies sported large rivet guns that could be used for melee attacks and proximity mines for long-range encounters. Alpha Series. Though the Alpha Series were the first line of Protectors to be bonded to Little Sisters, they were not introduced to the game series until BioShock 2. As mentioned before, they were essentially a failure due to their commitment to a single Little Sister, and though many had died throughout the years, there were a handful that survived. Having lost their Little Sisters long ago, these daddies evolved into things that more closely resembled splicers, attacking anything that was unfortunate enough to pull up beside them. Lancers. The Lancers were the most technologically advanced Big Daddies featured in Rapture, Much more stylized in appearance than their counterparts, their armor resembled a cross between the Art Deco style used to design the buildings of Rapture and Knights of the Middle Ages. Slightly taller, slimmer, and more decorated than the other Big Daddies, these giants would use a powerful ion laser as seen in the DLC to BioShock 2. Rumbler. And finally we have the Rumblers, which were the newest variant of the Big Daddies designed by Dr. Alexander. These guys sported an incredible arsenal of weapons, including mini turrets and a shoulder-mounted RPG that would shoot non-guided rockets. Though they weren't as heavily armored as their counterparts, they made up for this in mobility, which coupled with their impressive weapons, made them a formidable enemy to say the least.
I like to look a man in the eye when I give him my word. You and me, kid, we're going places.
You are aware of your plight. Who, I wonder, would be so cruel to force a mirror on a man with no face?
Well, that's all for today, folks. Thanks to all of you guys who requested we take a look at the Big Daddies featured in the awesome BioShock game series. If there's any other stuff you'd like me to check out, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.